or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Dave, and for the next hour I'll be reading from the current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. These articles have appeared in the August 8th and 9th editions of the Union-Sun Journal. The town looks to improve the municipal complex. Possible building expansions and relocation of water and sewer departments is being eyed. The town of Lockport recently approved a $25,000 contract with Wendell Companies to conduct a planning study for infrastructure improvements at the 6564 Dysinger Road complex and an addition at Day Road Park. We're doing a study to evaluate building renovations or extensions on the town hall campus, said Robert Clavoon, town engineer with Wendell Companies. It's basically for consolidating all the services from building and inspection and water and sewer and placing it by town hall. Our civil team will be working with Pat Dufour and department heads to craft that program. We're going to put all that into a report and let the town board know what the anticipated costs will be. Our goal is to bring the water and sewer department, now located at 6200 Robinson Road, to the Dysinger Road location for easier coordination of projects and the highway department. There's a lot of shared equipment between the departments, such as the vac truck, Clavoon said. But there's a height restriction at the sewer building. They've shared barricades, barrels, and backhoes, so bringing everybody together on one campus has some efficiencies. Part of the plan, he said, is to build a new unheated storage building for heavy equipment that is used seasonally, such as pavers and rollers. Clavoon said the study will also determine the best place to relocate underground fuel tanks and install them above ground for easier maintenance. They were installed in the late 80s to early 90s, he said. They've got years on them, but they aren't leaking. If we're going to plan for the building expansions, we have to take into account where the fuel tanks are. The highway department is looking to replace the older of its two salt barns, Clavoon said, which was not designed for its current use. The one salt barn was originally used for storage of recycle bins, he said. In order to increase capacity for the highway superintendent to mix soil and sand, we're looking to knock down that original salt barn. It gives the highway superintendent more flexibility to operate. Clavoon said the popularity of the events at Day Road Park has increased storage needs there. The movie night in the park has been so successful, he said. The Christmas in July has been so successful that they have more needs. Board member Pat Wydell has been involved with Day Road Park. He wants to look at an expansion of the equipment storage at the concession and bathroom building. I think the board will not do everything at once. It will be a multi-phase project. This piece is entitled Vintage Fun. Alcott's Carousel Park is offering something for the grown-ups on Tuesday. Grown-ups get to have as much fun as kids at Alcott Beach Carousel Park this Tuesday at the annual Park After Dark event. The after-hours celebration from 6 to 10 p.m. features live music, food, and classic carnival fun to support the mission of maintaining the vintage kiddie park with classic rides. The night's entertainment will include the Sophisticats featuring Jimmy Sansone performing a mix of pop, rock, jazz, and blues. Vocalist Kirk McWhorter will sing a nostalgic musical tribute to the 30s, 40s, and 50s under the lakeside tent. The park well-known Vintage Arcade will be the site of a skee ball tournament to win prizes. There's a lot of things going on for people, said Deanna Knapp, a carousel park volunteer for 8 years. There's 6 carousel races and a fortune teller. Knapp said carousel horses have sponsors and attendees can bet on horses to win cash. Knapp said the amusement park setting energizes the event. It's like a carnival atmosphere, Knapp said. We have hundreds of people that come. The environment is very entertaining. The carousel is from 1937, and it's all vintage rides in the park. Event participants will be able to try their hand at traditional midway games of chance, including disc drop or plinko, ring toss, duck game, bowling game, leapfrog game, and punch a board game. Knapp and her husband built many of the midway games with features harkening back to Newfane and Olcott. I think about the old-fashioned games we used to play at the old field days, she said. We're just trying to continue the feel of an old-time carnival. Knapp said the disc drop board that she created features a 1938 map of the town of Newfane, which draws people's attention. People like to come and look at it and see the houses and where they used to live on it. It's another way to celebrate Olcott. At the Tuesday event, disc drop players won giant cookies from the Cookie Cottage in Wilson, beach towels, full-size candy bars, and bottle openers. Other Midway prizes include Buffalo sports memorabilia, local gift certificates, and bottles of wine and hard cider from Newfane area producers. Proceeds are used to develop the park's infrastructure, upgrade buildings, and restore rides, said Gina Guido Redden, the event's organizer. We're getting more and more families from Buffalo, the Southtowns, and Rochester, Knapp said. Tickets were $35 pre-sale or $40 at the gate, including a catered dinner by Wegmans. Advance tickets were available at the Olcott Beach Carousel Park ticket booth or from local vendors, or they were purchased as e-event tickets also. The wastewater treatment plant suffers damage from flooding. The city is waiting for parts for repairs. Cost estimates are unknown. City wastewater treatment plant operators are coordinating repairs to the plant's screening and grit removal system that suffered major damage during nearly 5 inches of rain last weekend. At the Common Council's public works session Wednesday, Mayor John Lombardi III said the plant is currently not in compliance with regulations as it waits for custom-made parts to become available. Cost estimates for the repairs were not released. We are weeks away from having the plant back to full capacity, Lombardi said. All federal and state agencies we report to are aware of our concerns and the situation. In a report provided to Common Council members, Chris Peacock, chief operator of the wastewater treatment plant, outlined the damage and the repair needs, which he said are beyond routine maintenance. Peacock said the screening system that prevents branches, leaves, and trash from entering pumping and treatment systems had accumulated damage during heavy rains on July 18th, 19th, July 22nd, and July 28th. The first screen suffered a catastrophic failure following the storm event on July 18th, Peacock said. From that point forward, the remaining screens were forced to handle additional flow and debris load that would normally have been shared among all of the units. As a result, the remaining screens were subjected to significantly greater mechanical stress during each subsequent storm event. For each of the heavy rains in July and on August 2nd, Peacock said the plant experienced sustained flows exceeding 85 million gallons per day for many hours, surpassing the facility's design capacity. These repeated high-flow events, combined with the loss of the first screen, ultimately resulted in the catastrophic failure of the remaining screens during the subsequent storm on August 3rd. Marcus Weish, 2nd Ward Alderman, visited the wastewater treatment plant this week along with Lombardi, Roland O'Malley, 3rd Ward Alderman, and Catherine Fogel, 4th Ward Alderman. Weiss described the screening system as equipment that combs the water with screens pulling up regularly to shed debris. A sprocket that runs the chain for hoisting the screens had broken in half, he said. That's one of the bigger items that had to be outsourced and made, Weiss said. It's 300 pounds when finished. The plant is still operational, but we're not catching the bigger debris. The screens can go up and down because of the chains. I know for one of the big screens, replacement is over $100,000. Mike Marino, CEO of Nussbaumer and Clark, the engineering firm on retainer with the city, said wastewater treatment plant screens can be more than 50 feet tall and require specialized construction to withstand heavy forces. Peacock acknowledged that repair costs will be substantial, but restoring the screening system is essential to protect millions of dollars of downstream infrastructure. Vogel said it was stunning to see the condition of the area around the plant on West Jackson Street following the storm. It looked like a war zone with tree trunks lying around and mud and boulders all along the road, she said, along with trees blocking nearby 18 Mile Creek. They had a road closure coming down Rattlesnake Hill and West Jackson due to damage, Weiss said. In addition to flooding in areas of Lower Town, Weiss said parts of the 2nd Ward, including Hoover Parkway and Allenview Drive near Donner Creek, were underwater. It was a significant impact, he said. Niagara County Director of Emergency Services Jonathan Schultz announced Thursday that the New York State Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services has released a form to track damage from the heavy rainfall and flash flooding events from July 28th and 29th and August 2nd and 3rd. According to a press release, the form will collect information so officials can develop requests for federal assistance programs. The form is not an application for relief programs, the release said. It is not a substitute for reporting damage to your insurance agency. We recognize some owners and businesses occurred some significant damage from the rain and flooding, and we want to do all that we can to seek relief funds to help them. The first step in attempting to secure any funding is being able to produce data on the impact of the storms. Schultz asks residents to be as specific as possible on the forms. To fill out the form, go to https://www.dhses.newyork.gov and click on Report Damage. Struck utility pole Friday, disables area traffic lights. Driver of a pickup transported to local hospital after the crash. Traffic lights in central Niagara County were without power Friday after a driver struck a utility pole in Cambria. Cambria Fire Chief Roger Schrader said a driver in his 40s lost control of his pickup truck on Route 31 between Subera and Meal Roads on Friday morning. Schrader said the vehicle rolled after entering the ditch and struck a utility pole that is a main line for power distribution in the Lockport, Sanborn, and Pendleton areas. Schrader said the driver, whose name was withheld, was conscious and transported by ambulance to a local hospital. There were no passengers or other vehicles involved. Schrader said he did not believe driving conditions were a factor in the accident. The charge from a fallen electrical line ignited a gasoline fire, which Schrader said had mostly burned out when Cambria firefighters arrived at the scene. The power line remained on top of the vehicle, Schrader said, but was determined to no longer have a charge. With the driver's side of the vehicle in the ditch, Schrader said firefighters removed the back windshield to remove the driver. Here are some news in brief. City police investigating death. City Police Chief Stephen Abbott confirmed that a man in his early 40s fell from the railroad bridge over the Erie Canal on Friday. The individual's name was withheld. Abbott said there was at least one witness to the incident, which he said is an apparent suicide. Abbott said the man was found dead at the scene. Police investigation is ongoing. Back in the water at Olcott Beach. Niagara County Department of Health has lifted the advisory at Olcott Beach. Water quality retesting conducted on Wednesday indicates that conditions at Olcott Beach are suitable for recreational swimming. The Health Department will continue to monitor water quality closely and conduct follow-up testing. The status of all Niagara County permitted beaches can be found at www.niagaracounty.gov. Beach Report. Transit road lane closures. The New York State Department of Transportation is advising motorists that the right turn lane of Transit Road, State Route 78, northbound at the intersection with Klein and Roll Roads in Amherst will be closed between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. beginning Monday until Wednesday to facilitate utility work. As of today, this work should have been completed. The Niagara County lunch menu. This is the county's Eat Well, Stay Well menu for next week. Lunch is served Monday through Friday at senior centers, senior congregate dining sites around the county. Call 716-438-4031 for locations and more information. The suggested contribution for lunch is $3.25. The program is for residents aged 60 and older. All meals are served with bread, butter, and 1% milk, coffee, or tea. This Thursday, Greek seasoned chicken breast with feta cheese and whole Greek potatoes, Caesar salad, wheat pita, and fresh grapes. Tomorrow, Friday, mushroom Swiss turkey burger with lettuce, tomato, onion, and sweet potato wedges, seasoned green beans, wheat hamburger bun, and sliced peaches. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Niagara County marks Purple Heart Day. 18 more names have been added to the county's Book of Honor this year. Niagara County Clerk Joseph A. Jastrzemski led a ceremony Friday at the county courthouse in Lockport in honor of National Purple Heart Day. Niagara County Legislator Dave Godfrey and Town of Wheatfield Supervisor Don McSwan raised the Purple Heart flag, and members of the Gates Pipe and Drum Band performed for those gathered at the event. We are very proud to stand here and honor the more than 400 Niagara County residents who have earned the Purple Heart Award defending our country and our freedoms, said Jastrzemski. These men and women and all of those across the country who have received a Purple Heart have our deepest appreciation. Both Godfrey and McSwan are Vietnam veterans. McSwan, a Purple Heart recipient, wrote a book on his experience, Doc, A Combat Medic's Story. Godfrey spearheaded the effort to build the Purple Heart Monument and courtyard at the county courthouse. The Purple Heart is awarded to those wounded or killed as a result of enemy action while serving in the U.S. military. Jastrzemski said Niagara County continues to add names of residents to the monument and Purple Heart Book of Honor that is on display in the rotunda of the courthouse. This year, 18 more names will be added. If you know a Purple Heart veteran, alive or deceased, the county encourages you to come forward. There's a short application form to fill out that can be found at www.niagaracounty.gov/Purple Heart. Or those with questions can call the clerk's office at 716-439-7025 or the Veterans Service Agency at 716-438-4090. The Bristol Fountain was originally on Big Bridge. Over the years, people have inquired about a fountain that was originally located on the Big Bridge but was later moved to West Avenue Park, now Ida Fritz Park, where it stood at least until 1968. In its nearly 100 years of existence, the fountain's fortunes rose and fell several times. The story begins in 1872 with Lockport dentist Dr. Lawrence Wade. Bristol. Dr. L.W. Bristol was born in Connecticut in 1816, came to Lockport in 1839, and opened a dental infirmary on Niagara Street next to the Congregational Church, across the street from the present-day fire station. He married Lavinia Harrington of Lockport in 1845, but she died 5 years later, leaving him with a young daughter. Bristol married again in 1852 to Sophronia Sadler, also of Lockport, and had 3 children. It was Dr. Bristol who tended to the injured when the Congregational Church was struck by lightning during the Lockport cyclone of May 1853. On March 12, 1872, Sophronia Bristol died while still in her 40s with 2 minor children at home. In the fall of 1872, it was announced that a new fountain would be placed in a small park-like setting near the bridge that joined Main Street with West Main Street across from the Judson House, later the Kenmore and Locks Plaza hotels. At that time, the bridge span was 100 feet wide, but did not connect the Cottage Street Bridge. The fountain was a gift to the city by Dr. L.W. Bristol and became known as the Bristol Fountain. As Mrs. Bristol had passed away only a few months before, he may have given the fountain in her memory. Although the fountain was ornate, it was also practical. The basin was intended to be a public horse trough. There were other troughs in the city, but none more decorative than the Bristol Fountain. By late September, water was flowing in the basin, and a month later, the fountain itself was installed. The papers reported many delighted spectators stopped to take a second look at the fountain. The first few years after it was installed, there were few, if any, complaints about the fountain. But beginning in 1876, some negative comments began to appear in the papers. On August 22, 1876, the Lockport Daily Journal, after reporting that a sign had been placed at the fountain to keep off the grass, added that the extreme nastiness of the scum upon the water is enough to deter anyone from near approach. Over the next couple of years, the fountain was often praised in the papers, but also criticized, usually because it wasn't working. The Bristol Fountain still keeps up an appearance of summer in 1877. The Bristol Fountain sprinkleth merrily, 1878. The Bristol Fountain is not in active operation, 1879. Time for the Bristol Fountain to put in an appearance, 1880. The horses say they couldn't get along at all now without the water trough at the Bristol Fountain, 1881. And this commentary in the Lockport Daily Journal said that since the Common Council undertook to run the Bristol Fountain, they have made a poor fiat of it. Better return it to the doctor's supervision. By 1882, there was talk about moving the fountain to a different location. Some suggestions were realistic, such as relocating it to another park or the intersection of Main and Locust Streets, where it could still be used as a horse trough. Others were more tongue-in-cheek. There is considerable talk about moving the big bridge up between the Opera House and the American Hotel and putting Bristol Fountain in the post office. In the spring of 1883, it was reported, "The Bristol Fountain fails to spout again," and there were calls for it to at least be painted to improve its appearance. By June, the momentum was building that the Bristol Fountain should be removed to the city park without delay. In October 1883, a resolution was passed to move the fountain from its present unsightly and improper location to the triangle between New and Old Main Streets, West Avenue Park, now Ida Fritz Park. By May 1884, the Bristol Fountain was flowing in West Avenue Park, but because it wasn't in the heart of the bustling city, it became a target for vandals, and the city police were asked to monitor the park and arrest any trespassers. The sports page from the Union-Sun Journal on August 19th. Ready for change. Shaw is ready to face challenges on the job at SUNY Niagara. Bill Shaw knows what it takes to succeed as a basketball coach, but what he does not yet know is how to succeed as a college head coach. He has experience as a head coach, but never at the college level. He was hired at SUNY Niagara April 17th, is paddling his feet rapidly as he puts together a competitive roster in time for training camp opening up on September 1. It is a challenging endeavor that is exemplified by the fact that he only had 2 players when he took over, Lockport natives Ezreal Hall and Allison Millville. Bill Shaw knows what it's like to command a successful high school team, and now he is learning what it takes to lead a successful college team. He is taking over a SUNY Niagara program that went 15-10 overall and 3-1 in conference play. It is very hectic being hired in the middle of April and left with only 2 players from last year, Shaw said. We're struggling to find players. We're at about 8 or 9 players right now. I'd love to get to 12 by the time September 1 rolls around. That's the goal. Myself, Pete Dickinson, and Ken Riker have just been lifting up every rock that we can find to look underneath everything we are going about everybody that we can find right now. One of the biggest lessons that he has learned in his almost 5 months on the job is the importance of staying patient. He knows it will take time to build the program that he wants to build at SUNY Niagara, and that he cannot just snap his fingers and turn the program into a national contender. I'm not a patient person, so that's been difficult, but it's an understanding there's not a darn thing I can do about it, Shaw said. Right now, I can't control those things, so I have no choice but to be patient and wait and see how things go. More SUNY Niagara notes in sports. Volleyball volunteered at Western New York Girls in Sports program. SUNY Niagara women's volleyball volunteered as coaches at the Western New York Girls in Sports program July 27th at the Kaleida Health Performance Center. The program, provided by the United Way of Buffalo and Erie County with support from the Ralph C. Wilson Foundation, gave over 200 girls ages 9 to 12 an opportunity to experience multiple sports and the benefits of teamwork, physical activity, confidence, and perseverance. Western New York Girls in Sports was founded in 2006 by Mary Wilson, the widow of Buffalo Bills founder and original owner Ralph C. Wilson, to promote sports and fitness to adolescent girls. Another element of the event explored the history and impact of Title IX and the opportunities it has created for women in athletics since the federal civil rights law was passed on June 23, 1972. Sports teaches girls so much more than how to play a game, SUNY Niagara trustee and former health and physical education faculty member and women's volleyball coach Gail Tylek said. They teach confidence, resilience, teamwork, and the importance of believing in themselves. It is especially rewarding to see our SUNY Niagara volleyball players become role models for these young girls and show them what is possible when you have the opportunity to participate in sports. For current SUNY Niagara women's volleyball members, volunteering as coaches allows them to pass on aspects of being an athlete that made them pursue the sports years ago. Trusting teammates and embracing adversity are aspects which go beyond recording a big play, as current Thunderwolves head coach Lindsay Matikosh explained. Long after the final match, those lessons became the foundation for a life of purpose, resilience, and strength, Matikosh said. I couldn't be prouder of this team, not just for what they accomplish as athletes, but for the positive examples they set and the lives they touch along the way. Western New York Girls in Sports program that Gail has been involved with is nothing short of amazing, and we are happy to be part of a moment that could be the spark that inspires confidence or a lifelong love for the game. We look forward to continuing to volunteer in the future and pave the way for generations after us. Participating from SUNY Niagara women's volleyball coach as were sophomores Nivea Hall, Samantha Knobloch, Ava Roberts, Jordan Smith, and freshmen Kaylee Cielski, Belle Christopher, Elena Maziars, Adriana Waltz, and Mila Hills. Founded in 1973, SUNY Niagara Women's Volleyball begins its 53rd season against Fulton Montgomery Community College and Jefferson Community College at NJCAA Pod on August 29th in Watertown. The Thunderwolves home opener versus SUNY Erie is 6 p.m. September 10th in Sanborn. The following articles appear in the August 6th edition of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal. The Village at Keenan to support families in meeting essential needs. A new program kicking off in September at the former Montessori School building. Many of us have heard that it takes a village to raise a child. The question for some parents is, how do you contact the village? Starting in September, a new program called The Village at Keenan will answer that question by offering free drop-in playgroups, parent education workshops, parent support groups at its former Montessori School building on Locust Street. Ashley Green, the founding director of the program, said the Village at Keenan will also function as a referral hub for families to get their essential needs met. She said families could take advantage of a play group for children up to age 7 and at the same time talk to a staff member and get connected with free diapers, a stroller, car seat, or furniture. We can help them through a health insurance application, Green said. I hope to reach people before the crisis point. We want to help families get to where they need to go. Green said the location will be open during the day, Monday to Friday, eventually, and will open one evening until 7 p.m. The sky's the limit, said Bill Patty, executive director at the Keenan Center. We're going to see how this grows in the next 12 months. An important goal of the program, Green said, is reducing parents' and caregivers' feeling of isolation and loneliness. We're hoping to provide evidence-based parenting, educational, and support groups. We hope to provide case management services to link with mental health, food stamps, WIC, rent, health insurance, and court-mandated programs. With demand for nonprofit services increasing, Green said the Keenan team wanted to ensure that community members didn't experience gaps in support. Our goal is to strengthen families overall, no matter their income, Green said. There are no restrictions or qualifications. Green said the need for family support is clear, both locally and through national studies. She said that the 2024 Surgeon General's report, Parents Under Pressure, found that stress is reaching debilitating levels for many American parents. Throughout their lifespans, parents and caregivers often face heightened stressors, including financial strain and economic instability, time demands, concern over children's health and safety, parental isolation and loneliness, difficulty managing technology and social media, and cultural pressures. When stress is severe or prolonged, it can have a deleterious effect. 41% of parents say that most days they are so stressed they cannot function, and 48% say that most days their stress is completely overwhelming compared to other adults, 20% and 26% respectively. This high level of stress among parents preceded the COVID-19 pandemic, and the pandemic notably contributed to additional stressors. We like to have single, working, and stay-at-home parent support groups, Green said, of the Village at Keenan. I'd love to have a group for grandparents caring for their grandchildren. With play as an outlet for the whole family, Green said the program hopes to include monthly themed outings, and enroll family members in other Keenan Center recreational and educational programming. Green said the program has already developed strong partnership with other helping organizations. It's really being sponsored by the community, she said. We have Dr. Benet's office that is sponsoring a children's doctor office PlayStation. We will have Niagara Protests sponsoring a children's marketplace space. Niagara Falls Memorial Medical Center is sponsoring a children's baby care center that will include diverse baby dolls, changing station, car seat, and stroller for kids to play with. There will be a sensory nook for children that might get overstimulated. Community members can find out more by following the Keenan Center at www.facebook.com/KeenanLockport. Exploring Niagara Frontier, Loud Babies of the Beetle World. A handful of years ago, while enjoying solitude sitting outdoors, I heard a noise I hadn't heard before. It was a subtle, paced, repetitious sound that was like clicking or grinding. I wondered if the metronomic culprit might be a cricket or tree frog. Always wanting to get a good picture to supplement this column or one of my daily Nature 365 posts on social media, I snuck up on it. Expecting to see some sort of crawling creature on a log, I was startled to discover that the noise was instead coming from inside the log, which, by the way, wasn't hollow. I couldn't wrap my head around what I had just experienced. What could have made that noise? A week or two later, I had my eureka moment when in that same area I saw a white spotted pine sawyer. It was then I realized the noise I heard was the larva of the species. The babies are what give this beetle its name, as the sound of them chewing wood is reminiscent of a small saw. The fact that the larva's jaws, and just one larva at that, could be heard from 30 feet away impressed. It continues to do so in the years that have followed, now that I know the where, when, and what of listening. It's a lot of decibels coming from a tiny thing. If you peel back the bark, you will see a white, fleshy, legless, grub-like creature 1.5 inches or 2 inches in length. It will be in this stage of life for 2 years. The species spends 2 weeks as a pupa, and after that emerges as an adult beetle, sporting a length of 1 inch to 1.25 inches. The black body beetles, which with a telltale white spot on where their wings come together, are certain to turn heads with their antennae. The males especially have long ones, sometimes twice the length of their body, which is why they belong to the long-horned beetle family. Don't be threatened by their appearance, which can easily give someone the heebie-jeebies, nor by their dining habits. The baby beetles could hardly be considered pests of pines and spruces, as they feast not on healthy, vibrant trees, but rather on trees that are stressed, dying, or dead, made so by drought, disease, or other insects. This makes the larvae invaluable inhabitants of coniferous forests, as they break down dead wood and are therefore part of the natural cycle of decay and decomposition. The adults are very minor pests as they feast on tender, new bark of young twigs, from which the trees also recover with no noticeable damage or ill effects. This is the time of year we see the adults crawling or flying around, and to hear the young sawing away. Enjoy the wonders of Mother Nature presents us. These baby beetles may not have sounds as beautiful as songbirds, but their noises are just as amazing. Such a big noise from such a little insect. During the early 1960s, President John F. Kennedy focused the nation's attentions on the lunar mission that would land an American on the moon before the Soviet Union and return him safely to Earth. Kennedy declared this national goal on May 25, 1961. Audio recordings of conversations between Kennedy and NASA Administrator James Webb indicate that the two men did not always agree on the priority that should be given to lunar missions. Nevertheless, NASA soon implemented the Apollo program, whose primary objective mirrored Kennedy's goal to land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth. Despite the millions of dollars invested in the programs, Apollo 1 ended in tragedy. On January 27, 1967, 3 astronauts lost their lives when a fire swept through the command module during a pre-launch test. They were Virgil Gus Grissom, Edward White, and Roger Chaffee. Crewed Apollo flights were suspended while NASA investigated the accident and implemented extensive safety improvements. The Apollo missions eventually resumed, but none became as memorable as Apollo 11. Although the Soviet Union was the first nation to reach space with the launch of Sputnik 1 in 1957 and achieved several other early milestones, American astronaut Neil Armstrong made history when he became the first person to walk on the moon. The Apollo 11 mission launched from Cape Kennedy, Florida, now known as Cape Canaveral, on July 16, 1969. The lunar module landed safely on the moon on July 20, 1969. Mission Commander Armstrong was joined by Command Module Pilot Michael Collins and Lunar Module Pilot Edwin Buzz Aldrin, Jr. The Eagle has landed, Armstrong famously declared after the lunar module touched down successfully on a surface that had never been before visited by human beings. Those gathered in Mission Control celebrated the achievement with cheers and applause. Although the live television images transmitted to Earth were grainy and in black and white, millions of viewers witnessed one of the most momentous events in American history. After 8 years of effort, experimentation, and sacrifice, President Kennedy's dream had been fulfilled, albeit posthumously. Armstrong began gathering samples from the lunar surface, which he described as soft and powdery. Collecting the material proved challenging because of the unfamiliar conditions. While Aldrin assisted with sample collection, Armstrong positioned the television camera on a tripod and captured a panoramic view of the landing site. There was some controversy surrounding the placement of the American flag on the moon. The Outer Space Treaty prohibited nations from claiming sovereignty over the moon or other celestial bodies. However, Congress adopted a provision stating that the flag of the United States, rather than a flag of the United Nations or another nation, would be planted during the mission funded entirely by the United States. Millions of Americans watched on television as Armstrong and Aldrin planted the American flag on the lunar surface. Once the flag was secured, Aldrin saluted it. Before embarking on the Apollo 11 mission, Armstrong had already achieved numerous accomplishments. From 1949 to 1952, he served as a naval aviator. In 1959, he joined the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, commonly known as NACA, N-A-C-A, at the Lewis Flight Propulsion Laboratory. Later that year, he transferred to the NACA High-Speed Flight Station in Edwards, California. NACA became part of the newly established National Aeronautics and Space Administration in 1958. Armstrong worked as an aeronautical research scientist and test pilot before becoming an astronaut. Armstrong remains one of America's most celebrated figures, as he famously stated while stepping onto the lunar surface, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." In the national news, a judge criticizes the Justice Department dismissing the January 6th case. A federal judge decried efforts to rewrite the history of the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol, as he reluctantly dismissed the seditious conspiracy case against members of the far-right Oath Keepers extremist group at the Trump administration's request. The move Tuesday closes the book on the January 6 cases that were wiped out with Republican presidential Donald Trump's sweeping pardons and commutations last year, freeing people convicted of violent assaults on police and other crimes from prison. The Department of Justice in April acted to vacate the convictions of Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rose and others in the seditious conspiracy case who had their sentences commuted but did not receive pardons. It was a stunning reversal from the Democratic Biden administration, which hailed the guilty verdicts in one of the most serious cases stemming from the Capitol attack. U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta, who oversaw the Oath Keepers trials, criticized the department's move, writing in his ruling that the government asks to absolve these defendants of crimes against the United States itself. But Mehta wrote that he had no choice but to grant the administration's request. This is the last of prosecutions seeking to hold accountable those responsible for the events of January 6th. The book is now closed, wrote Mehta, who was nominated to the bench by President Barack Obama. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Here's an article celebrating the United States semi-quincentennial. Further review, a full House. The U.S. Constitution specifies that every 10 years, census numbers will be used to reapportion the seats in the House of Representatives. As the nation's population grew, the number of the seats in the House grew as well until 1911, when the Apportionment Act capped the number of House seats at 435. Congress passed the Apportionment Act on August 8, 1911, 115 years ago. How apportionment works. The Constitution guarantees each state 2 senators, but said that the makeup of the House of Representatives will be determined by population. This is why the federal government holds a census every 10 years. When the first Congress convened in 1789, there were only 65 House members. After the 1790 census, the Congress that met in 1793 found itself with 105 members, roughly 1 House member for each 34,436 constituents. By 1863, the House had 241 members, 1 for every 122,614 constituents. By 1903, the House had grown to 386 members, 1 for every 193,167 constituents. The Apportionment Act of 1911 aimed to bring the size of the House under control. It set the number of representatives at 433, effective with the start of the 63rd Congress on March 4, 1913. But included in the legislation was a provision to add a new seat for Arizona and New Mexico, which Congress expected to become states in 1912, and they did. This brought the total number to 435. A temporary exception to the Apportionment Act was made when Alaska and Hawaii were added as states in 1959. Each received 1 new seat, pushing the total up to 437. After the 1960 census and the 1962 midterm election, the number of seats was reverted to 435 again, where it has been ever since. Normally, reapportionment data released in December of the year is gathered. In 2020, however, the census process was delayed by the pandemic. Congress released its reapportionment plan in April 2021. It took effect for the 2024 elections. Texas gained 2 House seats, while Illinois and Pennsylvania lost for the 5th consecutive census. California lost a seat for the first time in its history, but it still has more House seats than any other state, 52. This article appears in the August 4th edition of the Union-Sun Journal. State parks to gather creek data along Reservoir State Park, working on flooding issues in the Lewiston area. Lewiston residents who live near Reservoir State Park and Gill Creek can expect state park crews to be out their way this month as they work to prevent flooding issues. The State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation sent out a letter to homeowners stating its consultants will be collecting topographic ground contour data along the Gill Creek Channel. This is part of a flood mitigation project at Reservoir State Park stretching from along the southern edge of the Niagara Power Project Reservoir in Lewiston to Military Road in the town of Niagara. The residential roads that would be most impacted are Brookside and Hewitt Drives, where Gill Creek runs through a neighborhood there. Property owners may see personnel working from August 10th through August 28th, walking into or being near the creek. Our data collection is limited to developing cross sections of the creek to model stream flows into the park and is not associated with any other state agency data collection or environmental study, the letter reads. A statement from the town said it has nothing to do with radiation testing happening in other Niagara County areas. State Parks has received a $3.3 million Resilient Watershed grant earlier this year to co-fund this project. With plans meant to provide greater flood resiliency, its preferred option is to create a natural stream conveyance corridor through Reservoir State Park, which would bring 600 linear feet of the creek to the surface, create a flood storage wetland detention pond area, and a walking trail. Further plan information available through the state park's website states that the current culvert conveyance through the park does not offer any ecological or natural benefit to the creek and surrounding area, is deteriorating, and being undersized contributes to an expanded flood boundary in this upstream area. Its current path goes alongside the basketball and tennis courts before crossing under Whitmer Road. Existing flood boundaries for that area are in the backyards of houses along Hewitt and Brookside Drives, Whitmer Road, and a portion of Gill Creek just south of Whitmer Road. The option for daylighting the creek and having a wetland pond is preferred since it is more economical, involves land under state parks control, and provides more positive ecological impacts. Another proposed option is installing a larger culvert, which would have high costs and less ecological and recreational benefits. The plans do not have any dates for when they expect to carry out this work. Another portion of Gill Creek that runs through Hyde Park received a $2 million state grant for shoreline restoration work on Hyde Park Lake. That work is expected to start in spring 2027, stabilizing 3,000 feet of shoreline through various means. Those with questions about the work can call State Park at 716-278-1770 or email newyorkparks.niagara@parks.newyork.gov. From the sports page of the August 4th edition, Grand Islands Brown has eyes set on the future ahead amid successful AAU summer. The shooter is receiving interest from mid-major college programs. Earlier this summer, Dane Brown was frustrated. He was not playing very much for his AAU team and felt his chances of getting an NCAA Division I college interest were dwindling. He had to fight to get a way to get back on track mentally and on the court. He had to stop feeling bad for himself and like he was not a good player. He did just that by leaving Team New England and joining a new AAU team, the New York Lightning. During time between teams, he got back into the gym and got back to work. He would not let his struggles with Team New England define him. Instead, he used it as motivation to get better. While playing for the New York Lightning, he averaged 18 points per game in Las Vegas and 23 points per game in Augusta, Georgia. His performances this summer and with Grand Island have led to him receiving interest from St. Bonaventure, Colgate, Coastal Carolina, Wagner, and the University at Buffalo. I learned to be humble at the end of the day, Brown said, because coming out of Buffalo, I was the Western New York Player of the Year, and most people get that, including me, and say, I'm pretty good, and there's not much work else I have that I could do, but I'm trying to be nationally good. The goal is to be nationally good, to try to be nationally ranked, and get that national exposure outside of Buffalo. Recently, Brown has been putting up big numbers, scoring 33 points on July 20th and 25 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 blocks on July 14th. It has led him to gaining a tremendous amount of confidence as the summer has gone along. Heading into this summer, the thought crossed Brown's mind that he would leave home and go to a prep school. He had talked to some schools about spending his senior year there in an attempt to drum up more college interest, but he decided to stay at Grand Island. He is coming back with the feeling that there is unfinished business after the team lost in the regional championship game. He wants to capture a state title for the Vikings. One of Brown's biggest beneficiaries returning to Grand Island is coach Chris Simpson. As a junior, Brown averaged 23.7 points, 7.9 rebounds, 1.8 steals, and 1.6 blocks per game. After the graduation of John Neville and his 7.2 assists per game, Brown will be tasked with being the team's primary ball handler and point guard in his final season. He does a little bit of everything, Simpson said. He'll handle the ball a little bit more this year without our 4-year point guard. Obviously, he's a scorer and a shooter, but he's also defended and rebounded underneath. He's a big piece of our puzzle, and we want to put that together. As he looks ahead, he is hoping to prove just as much about his game as he is about his personality and makeup. He wants to prove to college coaches that he can shoot and that he is a winner. It helps that attitude when he was a big part of Grand Island's best season since 1992. In the Section 6 title win over Lewiston Porter, Brown scored 29 points while adding 18 rebounds. It was part of a stretch in the postseason where he put his winning DNA on display, averaging 22 points and 10.8 rebounds per game. But there is another part of Brown's mental game that Simpson wants him to improve as a senior, his vocal leadership. Simpson is looking for Brown to be the coach on the floor and lead his younger teammates. During his time playing on the AAU circuit this summer, Brown has been speaking with multiple coaches at the mid-major level. Despite that, his future might be to go to a junior college in order then to find his way to the NCAA Division I level. The main question is, why would a college coach take a high school kid when they just got a transfer kid from JUCO, Brown said. That makes me want to work so much harder because I feel like I should be getting an opportunity to get taken into college from high school. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal. We read from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal every Saturday at 5 p.m. Your reader has been Dave. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the Jamestown Post-Journal. At 7 o'clock, we got the Niagara Falls Review, and at 8 o'clock, we have the Off Duty from the Wall Street Journal. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio readers broadcast daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability who are provided reading radios. A broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability